Hi, as a proud Palawa and Gamilaroi man, I would like your thoughts on how you think the perception of our country globally will be adversely affected by the no vote, and would you see it as being akin to how the world views the US over the Trump presidency, or again, the UK on Brexit?
I'll start with you, Alexander.
Well, there's a big debate about how the world views Brexit and how the world views Donald Trump. I mean, parts of the world really liked Brexit, parts of it didn't. So if you look at Brexit through the lens of the sort of liberal left elements of the media, you will find huge hostility to Brexit. But on the other hand, a lot of conservative media, you might look at it through that lens, will be very supportive. Well, in a sense, I think this issue of the referendum is very much the same. I'm guessing, because I haven't checked the media yet, but I would have thought the London Guardian, the New York Times, Le Monde, El País in Madrid, in other words, the sort of liberal left elements of the media, insofar as they will cover much of this at all, which I'm sorry to tell you they won't, but insofar as they have the slightest interest in this issue, will be very critical. On the other hand, if you go to the Spectator magazine or the London Daily Telegraph or whatever it is, to the New York Post, you'll find insofar as they have the slightest interest in this issue, they will be positive about it. I have to say, from my long experience, when in 1999 I was told that if Australia, you know, by the bien-pensants, as they're often called, you know, what I mean by the bien-pensants, I was told that if Australia voted against the Republic to retain its current situation, it would make my job as the Foreign Minister much more difficult. I'll be honest with you, other than a handful of Brits, I don't think anyone even mentioned it to me. Now, I have been overseas during the life of this referendum campaign, and almost no one, not quite no one.
Who did? Who did?
I did an interview on the BBC about it. I, as you can imagine, in my characteristically objective way, explained what was going on.
I can imagine. How did you describe it, Alexander?
Totally balanced.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't worry. And the other thing is, I think as a country we should, you know, this is a really successful and mature country. We should get over the cultural cringe and stop thinking, gosh, I wonder what the Brits are going to think about us. I wonder what the Americans... Forget it. Let's do what we think is right. Because let's be honest, we've done a pretty bloody good job over the last few hundred years compared to most of the rest of the world. Not a perfect job, but compared to most countries, we've done pretty well. So thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll take no lectures from them.
Patrick.
I think for the next few weeks there'll be some reporting on Australia's decision, as we would be interested in a similar decision made in another country. What I will say to, you know, I think we stream on ABC iView into the world here, and I'm sure they are all ring Patricia afterwards to get insights as to how world leaders should respond to Q&A. But what I think we need to be judged on is actually whether we close that gap, how we treat First Nations people in this country, and do we do better having gone through this process of a referendum, or do we actually do worse? I mean, that's what I would say to any foreign leader. That's what I want us to be judged on, is outcomes. I want us to be judged on the gaps that we ourselves have identified and said we want to close faster than we currently are. That's what we will be judged on in the long term, and it's 100% what we should be judged on.
And if we're going to go by it so far, not a good judgment, is it, James?
In what way?
How our country's gone on this measure up until this year. At this point, we've been failures.
I think on both sides of politics, we should admit there have been failures, and we can all do better.
Yes.
I just want to get a sense of whether there is you know, some reflection on the panel about, you've clearly had a resounding victory and you're one of the no proponents, but how this may be affecting those who really wanted a voice. I know that some of the remote booths, for instance, really had high levels of yes votes. Now, they were dwarfed by a nation, 97% of voting overwhelmingly another way. But James, do you reflect on that?
I don't see it as a victory. Saturday night, I don't think anyone was celebrating. The Liberal Party and the National Party had their positions on the voice. There was an official no campaign that led, and 60% of Australians voted no. There weren't champagne corks popping on Saturday night. There was a realisation we need to do more. We did not think the voice was the right way of doing it. We think practical measures are a better way of doing it, and that's why Peter's getting Jacinta and Karen to lead that review. But I don't like this word victory. I don't think that's a good way of describing what happened on Saturday.
But I'm reflecting on how this has impacted on First Nations people in those remote communities who were desperate for it, who clearly were voting for it. But, you know, democracy doesn't work that way. You and I know that, and we accept that. Do you feel for them?
I think what they wanted, better health outcomes, better educational outcomes, better employment outcomes, and I think that's the lesson that we all should be taking forward.